They want to give me a fight for 50,000 on a 1 week notice. And I said, no, I can beat you. I
Good
can
for
beat
you.
you. I can beat your fighter, but I need more time. And so my wife said, she said, John, what's wrong with you? We need that money. I said, listen, I said, I understand we need the money. I said, but I want you to fast forward my life to maybe 20 years from now. I said, will I be able to talk to you the way I talk to you now? I said, probably not, because they want me to fight these guys on short notice. I'm not in shape. You know, money sounds great, but the money's gonna leave real quick. We got, you got bills. You want to buy a bigger house, all that. You got kids. So I turned down a lot of fights. I turned down roughly about 7 or 8 fights for big, good, decent money. And she could understand that. I said, so fast forward to today. I always ask her, aren't you glad that I didn't take those fights? She said, yeah.
Right.
I said, I can still talk to you. I can still walk. I said, I got all my faculties that I know of. And she said, no,
Yep.
she said, no, you were right. I said, money sometimes it sounds great, but for the beatings you might take, I said, I said, think about this. They call you on short notice, like a week's notice. They know you're
Yep.
not ready for the fight. So they make it sound good to you to get this offer, but I said, the money doesn't always last if you don't take care of it properly. And I said that we wouldn't. I said, you have to think about your brain and later on in life, what's going to happen to you. I said, for me, I just rather not go down that route because a lot of my friends, even back then, were starting to show signs of dementia and they couldn't speak and talk properly. And I said, so the money doesn't really bother me. I said, I love to have it, but I'd rather be able to have life and be able to live out my years and see my kids grow up and not having them take care of me because they'd probably be pissed off they got to take care of me.